Alrighty, hello everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you. As Tony already said, my name is Janine Vanessa Heinrich. I am the host of Behind the Click. But before we jump into today's conversation, I just would love to have a quick show of hands. Who of you has ever wanted to build a personal brand? You don't have to be shy, okay? It's quite a few hands. So which of you, though, feels slightly allergic to the phrase personal branding? Okay, there's also some brave hands there as well. Maybe you feel daunted and maybe you even feel overwhelmed by it. But I would say you're all in the perfect place for today's podcast episode. And I honestly could not imagine a better guest for this conversation. So please join me in giving a warm round of applause to Miriam Jacks, the founder of Jacks Beauty Line, one of Germany's leading brands that is built through community, transparency, and showing up as your real self. Please, a warm round of applause. Of course.
Hello.
Alrighty. Welcome on the podcast.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. And we only have 30 minutes, so we got to get through this really quickly and get to the good stuff. But I'm kind of curious because we already started talking to the audience and you could see there's a bit of a mixed bag around the feelings around personal branding. So I'm curious for you, Miriam, what does personal branding mean to you today? And how has that changed since you really started on that journey years ago?
So first of all, I never really planned it to have like this big personal brand. Mm-hmm. I started off as a makeup artist and I noticed, okay, I want to be on Instagram, but then it evolved into this personal branding and I enjoy it because it's changing with me together. And I can understand that there's mixed feelings to personal branding because I think there's also a lot of pressure on it. And a lot of brands that don't do it hear a lot like, oh, you need to do personal branding, and it puts a lot of pressure on you, and it puts a lot of pressure on me as well at certain stages in my life. Mm-hmm. But I always think it's amazing what a big brand like Jacks Beauty Line grew out of it, and I gave over 50 people a job, and we have such amazing brand built out of this personal branding.
What I'm interested to understand, though, in more detail is how much of your success would you attribute to your personal brand being behind Jacks Beauty versus the product itself?
That's a very good question because it's changing at the moment. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would say 100% on the personal branding. But right now it's changing because I'm taking myself a little bit more out of the company and I'm bringing people in that can, develop the products and the whole brand and also the internationalization. What's the word?
Internationalization.
Internationalization. Very heavy word.
Got it.
So right now I would say it's like still 70% on my personal brand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but then what I'm curious to understand, because there's potentially a lot of people here with early emerging brands, and so my question is then, do you believe that for an early stage company, personal branding is actually really key for early success then?
Yes. And I think it's very, very, I think especially in this time, it depends on the money you have for building a brand. For me, I didn't have any money, so I started just with me and my account. And then it grew out of that. But of course, when you start with a business plan and you have investors and a lot of money, then maybe it doesn't need a personal brand.
But let's jump into that then a little bit, because I'm kind of curious about the early stages of it, because I would actually say the vast majority of people building a business are going to start bootstrapped. They're going to start with potentially just their account like you did. And I can even speak for myself. The idea of personal branding is extremely daunting, but there's also an aspect that is very much a lot of fear. And then it's easy to post once. It's very challenging to be consistent with it. So could you take us back to how you really tactically got started with that?
Yes.
Did you already have a position even?
I was the national makeup artist of L'Oréal Paris back in the days. I started with them 2011, and I mean, as we know, the biggest beauty cosmetic brand worldwide. But somehow they didn't help me to grow my Instagram followers. Like even after 7.5 years being with L'Oreal, I had like, I don't know, maybe 500 more followers, but it was never really helping. Even I was on TV, I was doing over like 350 videos with L'Oreal all over the place. I was at DM and so on, but somehow I didn't grow. And then when I started my own personal brand, then it started because I focused on what kind of followers or what kind of clients do I want to have, and I produced like the material and all the videos that actually helped growing my own business. And I think it's a lot about passion, and I want to come to this point because I know that a lot of people are struggling to be in front of the camera. And I was too. It was so difficult for me to show up. When I started Instagram stories, I don't know, I took like at least 25 videos before I posted one. Today, I just do whatever and then I post it because I don't care anymore, because I know that the authenticity behind it is so important. And that's also, I would recommend when you start, just do it. And it's so, I know it's so hard and it's so embarrassing. And you think about like, okay, how do I sound? How do I look? Is it good enough? How's the cut? And it won't be perfect, I can tell. But it's, you know, you're getting there and it's getting better and better, and you get to know the customers or your followers or your future customers. So I think it's all about just doing. Jump into the cold water, just film yourself the whole time, and then you get to know yourself a lot better. You can hear your voice, you can see yourself in another way. And I think that's the most important thing about it, because I think when you start a business, you're so passionate about it, what you do. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't do it. So I'm sure you can talk about it, and when we stand face to face, you can be very passionate about like what you do, but as soon as the camera is on, people freeze and they're like, oh, what? I don't know what I do, what I'm doing. Yeah. So I think that's the most important thing, to be comfortable in front of the camera and not think about how do I look, how do I talk, how am I, how does other people think about me?
And I think that's an interesting point because I feel like I've oftentimes heard like, okay, well, just do it, just get started. And it's still one of those things where I'm like, yeah, okay, but what does just doing it really mean? It sounds like for you that meant recording videos. Was Instagram your platform of choice? Was that the one that you started with?
Instagram still till today is my platform of my choice. I don't get warm with TikTok. I do LinkedIn, but I feel most comfortable with Instagram, and that's also something I can totally recommend. Like, start with one platform, not with everything, because it's very overwhelming to do one thing and then come up with a program, like a TV program. Like, I do these Instagram lives every Monday. Since 5 years, I'm doing these getting readies in the morning at 8:30 in the morning, and I have like around like 300 to 500 people every Monday watching me doing my makeup. And, you know, I just started like to, you know, tell them my way as an entrepreneur, or, you know, what's special about the new products, or, you know, I'm very honest in these lives, and I can totally recommend that to build your fans by telling your story and producing like really like a schedule for your week, and do less than more. Like, rather 3 good posts than 5 and they're bad.
Okay, fair. So you kind of hinted at 2 things that are essential. First, picking a platform to get started with, so you're not spreading yourself super thin. The other thing that you said was having a schedule, which you briefly hinted at. So for example, you've got your Mondays at 8:30. So what was that in the very beginning? Did you have one day a week that you started with posting and then you scaled up from there? Or what did that look like at first?
So how I started, in case you don't know my story, I never planned to have like this big e-commerce brand, never. I was a makeup artist, and during Corona, my today's business partner, she was doing the sales for my makeup brushes, and I was doing something completely different. I was going into interior design, and when the lockdown came, I felt so bad that they had to, that we couldn't sell anymore, that I was like, okay, what can I do? I can sit in front of the camera, everyone is at home, and I just do these Instagram lives. So I was starting it, and I did it every day, like 3 times sometimes. Yeah. But not only on my account, because I didn't have any followers. I had below 10,000. And then I just asked other influencers. They were never live, so they were very curious how it works, and let's do it. So that is how I got my platform, through other accounts, and that's what I totally can recommend. I mean, I know today it's not for free anymore. You have to pay a lot of money to go live with influencers, but still get creative. How can you get more visibility, and how can you be more present with other people that are into your products or into your offerings?
Okay, but I'm curious about this because, I mean, you of course, didn't start off with the full intention of being an entrepreneur and going in that direction. But one thing about building a personal brand, at least from my perspective, is it's quite time consuming.
It is.
Even for
Absolutely.
It is, yeah. So even for myself, I started my company a year ago, and then I sit there and I think to myself, boy, I'm really not trying to sit here for 2 hours to think of what to post for the next 2 weeks or a month. And it just feels like extra work. And so my question is, what was the tangible value? And this is really me asking personally even, what is the tangible value of building a personal brand? Like, what did it unlock? Mm-hmm. Was it just the community? Was it a skyrocket for your first sales? Like, where did you see the connection between the value?
Okay, so I'm just very honest. Like, when I started, I had a very bad mindset about money. So I never had money, actually. So I was going into coachings and coached myself, like, what is it? Because I felt I wanted to do business, and I wanted to get into I wanted to build a brand, but it never worked out for me that well. And then I did this coaching, and it changed completely. And from the minute on, when I was sitting in front of the camera and saying, okay, I want this, I was convincing, and I built this brand from 0 to today 15 million a year. So I think that is like where you can get with a brand, when you're very, very focused on what brings the money in. Because what I can hear from yourself, and I bought the 2 books in your shop, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I would always concentrate on what brings the money in to get creative, because we need people. I mean, I have a big team around me right now. I have even a personal brand manager. What I could never imagine back in the days, to have one day that somebody is even helping me with producing all these videos. But at this time, I just knew, okay, the most important thing is that I bring money into this company, so I can hire people, I can build my products, I can do the things I want to do with my brand. And if I sit there and just focus on nice pictures on my website, it wouldn't bring any money in. So I knew I didn't have any cash. We weren't doing any ads, nothing. I just had this account. So I think that was what pushed me to do it and to get in touch with, One Life. And we made 5,000 euros with just makeup brushes. And I was like, okay, wow, it works. But before I did that, I had to resolve my mindset, to my beliefs into money, and what, I was never focused on the money, because I told myself money means stress for me. So, I was never focusing on what brings the money in, because money means stress.
Okay. So essentially, once you changed your mindset around it and you realized...
It completely changed everything.
Yeah. And then realizing that the personal branding is a money driver, is a revenue driver for you and your company.
And it doesn't cost you anything.
That part. Okay. And this is the thing that I find is interesting, though, because a part of personal branding is also a part being open. Kind of being open to your audience, showing them who you are. And what I think is interesting about this is you said that in the early days, you were like an open book. This is the part that I get hung up with personal branding, because being an open book means being vulnerable, which means you're opening yourself for attacks.
Yes.
For critique.
That's what I do a lot.
Yeah. And it's hard because you're already critiquing yourself.
Yes.
But now there's other people telling you 100 ways that you're doing something wrong. So how was that for you, especially in the early days or even now?
Yeah. The funny thing is, in the early days, I never had it.
Okay.
We grew so much, and it was like insane because I think I was just this young makeup artist doing my makeup brushes, and everyone could relate. You know, they were like, "Oh wow, that's amazing! She's building this brand." So today, you know, we're a big brand. We have a big office, a nice store. I invested in my first building on Cyprus, and I show that, and people can't relate anymore. It's too, you know, they see only me now in this position where I'm at now, and not like this back in the days, how I was struggling being in front of the camera, like building this brand. And that's why you have to open up. And I think for my own way, since for, I don't know, at least 3 days, we had this amazing community. Nobody ever complained about anything. We didn't have any returns. Like everyone was like, "Oh my God, what she's doing, that's so amazing." And then we got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I stopped being like on live every day because, of course, there was another business, and that was the point where people couldn't. Yeah, they weren't so much. I don't know, how can I explain it?
They struggle to relate in a way?
Yeah, they struggle to relate because I was not online every day for 3 times a day anymore, you know? So I was trying to post as much as possible how the company is changing and how it's evolving. But then it started to be uncomfortable at some points because, of course, you're posting and then people, they just follow you newly and then they know, okay, that's something crazy. That's not where I am.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I would love to dive into a little bit more, because you're touching on exactly one of the scenarios where people started then accusing, okay, the prices are going up, and these prices are going up in your company, which is to support your luxurious lifestyle, the place that you've invested in Cyprus, and for this luxury experience for your company. And so there came to a point where you were no longer the scrappy makeup artist that was just building a brand that people could relate to. Now you are CEO of a major brand that's making millions. And so this is also what I'm curious to, because when you were experiencing this backlash, especially this specific case that I'm referring to, how do you address that as a person, from your personal brand account, but also now as a company?
Yeah, I think for me, what I want to really say is like, it's not very easy every day, you know. It's sometimes it's very hard and it's getting very personal, but that's the price what we are paying. I think that's like, you know, like I think you can't have it all, like to say like, okay, I want to build like 300,000 followers and I want to make 15 million, and then to say like, okay, but everyone has to be fine with how I do it. And that as soon as you get visible, it's like, you're getting this. But it's so important to learn and to grow of that and to still stand to your products, to what you do, how you do it. And I started my own podcast, the Glowcast, just to talk about this, you know, what kind of struggles are behind it, how difficult it is for me as a makeup artist. I never learned anything about e-commerce. I was never in BWL. I never studied anything besides like being a makeup artist. And so there are a lot of struggles behind it. And I think that is like something that I can tell, like soon as you grow and you make money, invest in kind of things like podcasts or like magazine publications and stuff like that, because I think you have to take people on your journey.
But I'm kind of curious because, yeah, of course you're taking people on your journey, but are you being as open still as you were in the very beginning, especially
Unfortunately,
personally?
yes.
Okay. Because that's where the critique came, right?
So my team is not super happy about that I'm like open like a book and that I'm talking about everything. And I hear so many times, wow, it's amazing that you're talking so open about your numbers and like the struggles you have and how you feel. And still, I think that's still why we grow so much. I think that's still something very important, especially in these times, that you are honest and that you're like, when you're a personal brand, you know, I would never recommend it for like any business, you know, but as a personal brand and when you want to take people on your journey, I think you have to do it. And I want to do it even more.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's a lot. Because after hearing this, I'm like, whoa, okay, how do you come out from that? Because you did have about a 1-year period where you were a lot quieter. You were focusing more on operations.
That's last year.
Last year,
Yeah.
you were focused more on operations. You were focusing more on the company. And at the same time, this is where a lot of this backlash and potential assumptions were coming from people. And so what I'm curious to understand this from 2 parts. And the first part we can start with is on an emotional level, for yourself, because there's also part of being a founder that's also about self-care. How did you take care of yourself through that? Were you just kind of like, take it just a grain of salt, we just shake it off? Because some people are like that. Or were you actively actually hurt by this?
No, I was totally hurt. I had some very, very bad days. And I must really say, it's like the last year has been challenging. I'm the mom of 2 kids, 2 little kids, like I said many times before, I wasn't planning it. So to have all of the sudden 50 employees and being responsible for such a big company, it was insane. Like sometimes I was like really like waking up in the morning crying, said like, I've got to sell everything. It's too much. I can't do it anymore. And then when I got like these negative comments on, you know, how we were growing, like, oh, Jacks Beauty Lane, it's changing so much. Like, you know, they're not that authentic anymore. And that is also something that, you know, I never wanted, but it's natural, you know, like you can't stop it. And it was like also growing that fast because people were buying like insane, you know. And so I think it's very important and it's a big learning and it's a nice journey for me. And the last year I got a little bit more quiet, but just yesterday I had a workshop for my own personal account and we were talking about it and I was so happy that we did it because, you know, I really noticed, okay, I have to get back on track and do this program again, you know, like it doesn't help when I sit in the company and being just in meetings the whole day about like schedules and about payments and stuff. It really helps us a lot more when I focus on what I did when we grew so much.
And I would love to take this to something concrete for the people in the audience and even for someone like myself. You're on your business, now you're getting backlash and you're trying to cope with it. So what would be your 1 or 2 tips for coping with it? Is it delete the comments and move on? Is it address it head on? Is it go take a yoga class and breathe through this?
We deleted a lot of comments,
okay.
Actually. Because sometimes some were just so hard that I couldn't read them anymore, and then we deleted it. And I think it's totally okay. I also want to recommend, it's your account. It's like you have to feel good about it. And when people are getting too crazy, just block them and delete their messages. And like, it's your energy. I think my biggest learning is to, you can't do everything at the same time and you have to get people on board because I think you have to, give, like, for example, like the TikTok account, I wanted to start so many times. I started at least 5 times and then I always broke off, took it off again because I didn't like it. I don't feel attached to this, to this platform. So that's my biggest tip. Listen to your intuition. Do what is really good for you and tell or explain things, like do the content you really like. not what you think is trend or what is like just necessary to do. Do what you think is the best for your branding and for your personal brand.
Yeah, and I think on that note, that's an interesting point because your brand has changed. Initially, you were more focused on the beauty aspect and giving tips there, and then you went to more of a wellness and self-care focus, which also means along the way you essentially built a new community and potentially left the old one behind. What was that process actually like?
I mean, we're just in the
You were
middle.
just in the middle of it, okay.
And that's why we had this workshop yesterday, because it's so difficult to do this. Before, I didn't even think about it, like what kind of customers do I want to have? Like I was just online and was doing these lives, and then people bought, and I never saw them. I mean, we had Corona, like I had like 500 people in these lives. I never saw them. I never knew who are my customers. And then when we grow, we started to doing these, analyzing the persona and what is the customer we want to have. And we noticed that also through working with kind of influencers, we have, of course, like a lot of customers that are not our dream customers and that they don't understand what Jack's Beauty line stands for. Yeah. And so they can decide if they want to stay or if they want to leave. But I think that's the risk that I take as an entrepreneur. And since I always said, like, the world doesn't need another makeup brand, like I just always wanted to change, like, the way how we work and how people also see themselves when they do the makeup. It's a lot about the ingredients in my products. That is some very, very important thing. At some point, I noticed it's not about money anymore. I need to feel good with what I do. And of course, I want to grow and I want to make more money because we can do a lot more nicer projects. We do a lot of charity, like all of these kind of things. But at the same time, you have to feel good with what you do.
Yeah.
And what you represent.
Definitely. And I appreciate how open and vulnerable you've been in this conversation, even talking about the hardships of personal branding. We have enough time for one question. And since it is a personal branding topic, I think it's a great opportunity to bring a question to the audience. So would anyone like to ask a question? We're just going on firsthand. Yeah. So for there, do we have a mic? Tony?
Hi, I'm Jan from Flaconi. I'm just having a personal question. Thanks for the insights first. You mentioned a lot that you have to have an eye on the money and make sure that you generate revenue. But on the other side, you also said personal branding is really important and you should do what you like and what you think is good for your brand. Mm-hmm. So my question is, how do you keep the balance, and when did you switch from having a more personal brand view to a more monetary view?
Yeah. That's a very, very good question, because I really don't want you to understand me wrong. In the beginning, I was just focusing on making money, because in the beginning, there was nothing about like personas and like who do I want to sell to. It was just about like, okay, how can I survive with this company? And then when we grow, I would say at this mark of like 10 million, it was so much more about, okay, how much more do we need to make to be safe, on the safe side, and at the same time, for example, I give you this example with sales. I was always against sales, because I said, like, at my brand, I want the customers that are that they value what I put into it, the development of the products we produce only in Berlin. So I want people to understand and don't want to catch them with the sales. So last year we did so many sales and I didn't feel well with that. But at the same time, we had to do it because we need to make the money to have like all these, the income for all the salaries and so on. But this year, I said, okay, we stabilized, and now I really want to focus. And of course, you can't like cancel everything, but I want to focus on what feels good, and there is a middle. You have to just, think and be creative. How can I do it, and how can I gain the followers or the customers that are, willing to pay for what I do. And I think I can tell you in 1 year how it worked, if we're back to the sales or if we stick to it.
And with that, we're towards the end of our conversation. So thank you so much for your question. And to leave the audience with something concrete. If within the next 6 months they want to go from zero to a real personal brand that's actually working, what's the one thing they need to start doing this week?
Practicing talking in front of the camera, I would say. You can just put your cell phone in front of the mirror when you do for the ladies, makeups in the morning or the grooming for the guys, and just talk to the camera and look at it always over and over again. And then get used to it and just start with an easy schedule and post and post and post and just get the experience.
Awesome. And that is that. So thank you so much, Miriam, for joining us. This was really insightful, and thank you so much for your openness and honesty.
Thank you very much.